normal. When I am in Europe, I feel a little bit normal. When I go to Estonia, I feel very abnormal because the people there are very tall. I'm like only up to here, half of them. So I feel very abnormal. I feel like I'm a hobbit when I go to Estonia. And I was warned and said, Bishop, people will be asking you about war. And for your information, the parishioners we have in Estonia are not Filipinos, but 100% Estonians. That's the reason why they're tall. Otherwise, I would have said they are as tall as I am. That means, like you, we see eye to eye. They told me, they said, please be warned, people will be asking you about the war. In fact, they sent me a video, and they wanted me to give a comment on this video, and I will be honest, I did not watch the video because I did not want to give an unbiased or a biased assessment or whatever, or something that I would say. As we walked around the city, beautiful city by the way, people simply carried on with their lives as if nothing is happening. They carry on with their daily business in a calm fashion, at least on the outside. However, you can feel something in the air. People went through their lives, you know, as usual, daily chores, but there was something, an anxiety, something that was very thick that you can literally get a knife and cut it. That is understandable, knowing that Tallinn is 200 kilometers from the border to Russia. 200 kilometers. Not only that, you see a lot of young guys wearing their military uniform in the city walking around. That means that they are preparing for something. Understandable, I guess. Europe, you have to understand that Europe was the theater of the past two world wars. Around 1918 and then 1939, 1945. During the First World War, 9.7 million military personnel lost their lives, and 10 million civilians lost their lives. 21 million were wounded in the First World War. During the Second World War, approximately 50 million people died. In other words, if you look at the current population of France, it's about 75% of the population of France, current population of France, died during World War II. More than 500,000 Filipinos died during World War II. Military and civilians, military personnel and civilians. And as a consequence of these two world wars, the continent of Europe could not reconcile that God is love and human suffering. It's for that reason that some of them stopped believing, because they could not reconcile that if God is love, why would he allow people to suffer? That's a very difficult question to answer, by the way. And it would take me about one whole day to explain it to you. So I would not dare explain it to you for some other time. From the words of Martin Luther King Jr., he said, war is a poor chisel to carve out tomorrow. In other words, who wants war? No one wants war. People die in war. And I encourage you to read the book Mere Christianity by C.S. Lewis, because C.S. Lewis had a lot of good things to say, because he said and wrote all of these things during World War II. He was in World War I, He was part of he was a soldier in World War I, and then wrote many things. As a matter of fact, if you had watched Narnia, Narnia was a story of, he made a story of children leaving London to a safer place to escape the bombing.
Yes.
And then in the movie, they entered into a wardrobe because he was conveying a message that beyond all of these things that are happening, there's something, a reality that exists. That's what Narnia was all about.
Yeah.
Now, three children, Peter,
I forgot his name, yeah. Peter.
Lucy and Malou. They went through this wardrobe and they see in the midst of war when
Edmond, yeah, you're right.
Yes.
Edmond, yes.
Thank you. When the British people were in the subway and they would use boxes to make altars and have a Eucharist in the subway because they were being bombed. Thanks be to God, we are not in that situation. That didn't stop them from worshiping God. They went to the subways and these orange boxes and sometimes you know what I'm talking about. Yeah. The boxes, they stack them together and then make an altar with the crucifix and 2 candles, and then the priest would serve the Eucharist. While Edmond, Lucy, and Peter went to the countryside and they entered into his wardrobe, and then comes the whole fictional story of the kingdom of God. So Martin Luther King Jr. said, war is a poor chisel to carve out tomorrow. There's something else that you need to understand. Democracy does not produce morality. Democracy does not. Morality is the understanding of what is right and what is wrong. Second point I would like to make regarding war is that laws can only go so far, but cannot completely mitigate evil or stop evil from happening. Law cannot. You might have 10,000 laws or 1 million laws. It is not going to stop evil. Evil was and can only be conquered by the cross, not laws, not democracy. Zelensky was the one who said to the United Nations as he was addressing them, he said, "You are the Security Council. Where is the security of my country?" So that shows us that laws have its limitation in terms of putting a cap on what humans can do. As someone said, if you're asking why there is war, because this might answer your question. Humans made the atomic bomb, not God. When evil is personified, war is inevitable. Which is quite a shock to the West. Because after World War II, after the United Nations was put together, the West never expected that there was going to be war. Oh, there can be war in Syria, but not in Europe. To our surprise, it's right at our doorstep. It changed the calculus of the Western thinking since World War II and after the Cold War. What is equally shocking is the capability of humans to inflict harm on co-humans. It's amazing what other humans can do to other humans to inflict harm. Very shocking to many of us. But that's what war brings to our minds. It was Friedrich Nietzsche who said, God is dead. He remains to be dead, and we kill him. Of Of course, he was alluding to the possibility of eliminating the understanding of the existence of God. I would say that such killing of God and being proud of killing God is quite preposterous or contrary to reason, to say the least. Why? Because God is the giver of hope. If you kill God, you don't have any hope. It doesn't make sense. You want peace, and you abandon God, who is the giver of peace. Doesn't make sense. C.S. Lewis was the one who said, you know, if you argue with God, you are like sitting on a branch of a tree and you're cutting the tree at the same time. Doesn't make sense. Doesn't make sense. But people become angry when they don't get what they want. That's what happens. That's the truth about humanity. And it's easy for us to blame God for this irreconcilable question in our minds, in our human capacity to think that how can a loving God allow humans to suffer? The question that comes to mind, and some people have asked me, Bishop, is this the end of the world? If you're asking that question, let me say thank you for asking that question, because that's exactly what I would like to answer today. I'm going to read to you Luke chapter 21. You have your Bibles with me. I'm going to let the words of Christ answer that question. Is it the end of the world? Jesus said, and when you hear of wars and insurrections, do not be terrified, for these things must take place first. For the end will not follow immediately. Then he said to them, nation will rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom. There will be great earthquakes, and in various places famines and plagues, and there will be dreadful portents and great signs from heaven. Thanks be to God. The reason why this is closer to us is because of modern technology. Unlike before, when there's something that happens across the world, it takes 6 months for you to get to hear the news. Today, you get to see it on television live. So it becomes closer to you and to me. It says, oh, this is what's happening. Jesus was not prophetically saying, you are going to have war, and you are going